She scrubbed their floors, cooked their meals, and wore rags while they laughed in her face. But they didn't know the woman they called Trash was actually signing their paychecks. Everyone thought Odetta was just a desperate orphan, lucky to marry into the wealthy Hawthorne family. For 3 years, she endured the mother-in-law from hell and a husband who looked the other way. But the day Daniel Hawthorne handed her divorce papers to marry a real heiress was the day he signed his own death warrant, financially speaking, because Odetta wasn't poor. She was Odetta Sterling, the hidden owner of the conglomerate about to buy his family's failing company. And revenge? It's best served with a hostile takeover. The chandelier in the Hawthorne dining room cost more than the house Odetta grew up in, or at least the house she told them she grew up in. It was a crystal monstrosity that seemed to judge her every time she walked beneath it. Tonight, the light fractured through the crystals, casting sharp, jagged shadows across the table. It was Daniel's 32nd birthday, and Beatrice Hawthorne, the matriarch of the family, and a woman whose heart was as cold as the Chardonnay she was sipping, was in rare form. "Odetta," Beatrice snapped, her voice cutting through the polite clinking of silverware. "The roast is dry. Again. I specifically told you to baste it every 15 minutes. Honestly, what did your mother teach you before she passed? How to be incompetent?" Odetta gripped her napkin tighter under the table. She looked at her husband, Daniel. He was handsome, in that classic old-money way. Sandy hair, sharp jawline, tailored suit. But his eyes, once warm, were currently fixed on his phone. "I basted it exactly as you asked, Beatrice," Odetta said, her voice steady. She had practiced this tone, the tone of a mouse that knew its place. "Don't talk back to me in my own house," Beatrice hissed. She turned to her daughter, Jessica, a 25-year-old aspiring influencer who lived off the family trust. "Can you believe her, Jess? We take her in, a nobody with no name and no money, and this is the thanks we get. Dry beef." Jessica laughed, scrolling through Instagram. "Maybe she's saving the moisture for her tears later, Mom. You know how emotional the help gets." "I am his wife," Odetta said, finally looking up. "Not the help." Daniel finally looked up from his phone. He sighed, the sound heavy with exhaustion. Not at his mother's cruelty, but at Odetta's defense. "Odetta, please, don't start a scene tonight. Mum's stressed about the merger." "The merger?" Beatrice scoffed. "If we land the deal with Sterling Global next week, we won't have to worry about stress ever again. We'll be swimming in billions. And maybe then, Daniel, you can find a wife who actually fits the image of a billionaire CEO." Odetta took a slow sip of water. Sterling Global. The irony was so thick it nearly choked her. "Actually," Daniel said, putting his phone down. He cleared his throat. The room went silent. He reached into his briefcase, which was resting by his feet, and pulled out a thick manila envelope. He slid it across the mahogany table. It stopped right in front of Odetta's plate. "What is this?" Odetta asked, though she felt a cold premonition settle in her stomach. "I didn't want to do this on my birthday," Daniel said, his voice devoid of emotion. "But the timing, it's just necessary. With the Sterling deal approaching, the board and Mother think I need to clean up my image." Odetta opened the envelope. Her hands didn't shake. She pulled out the document. The bold letters at the top screamed at her. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." "You're divorcing me?" Odetta whispered. "Because of a business deal?" "It's not just business, Odetta," Daniel said, avoiding her eyes. "Look at us. You don't fit in. You never have. You're simple. You like gardening and reading. My world is galas, boardrooms, high stakes. I've met someone else, someone who understands that world. Ashley Vanderbilt." "The Vanderbilt girl," Jessica squealed. "Oh my God, Daniel, she's amazing. She has like 3 million followers." Beatrice smirked, swirling her wine. "Finally, a woman with a pedigree. I told you 3 years ago, Daniel, that charity cases don't make good wives." "Sign the papers, Odetta. We're being generous. Daniel is giving you the apartment in the city and $50,000. That's more money than you'd see in 10 lifetimes. Odetta looked at the papers. She looked at Daniel, the man she had fallen in love with when he was just a rebellious son trying to escape his mother's shadow. She had hidden her identity to ensure he loved her, not the Sterling Empire. She wanted to be sure. And now she was. "You're sure about this, Daniel?" Odetta asked softly. "Once I sign this, there is no going back. You walk out of my life and I walk out of yours. Completely." "Just sign it, Odetta," Daniel snapped, his guilt manifesting as irritation. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Odetta picked up a pen. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She simply signed her name, Odetta Miller, in a fluid, sharp script. She stood up. "Where are you going?" Beatrice barked. "Clear the table first." Odetta looked at Beatrice. For the first time in 3 years, the mouse was gone. In her place was something cold, sharp, and terrifyingly calm. "Clear it yourself, Beatrice," Odetta said. She walked out of the dining room, the sound of her heels clicking against the marble floor, echoing like gunshots. "You'll be back," Jessica yelled after her. "You have nowhere to go. You'll be begging on the street in a week." Odetta didn't look back. She walked out the front door of the Hawthorne estate, leaving her coat, her keys, and her wedding ring on the entry table. The cool night air hit her face. She walked down the long driveway to the main road. She reached into the pocket of her cheap cardigan and pulled out a burner phone she had kept hidden for 3 years. She dialed a number. It rang once. "This is the private line of the CEO's office." A crisp male voice answered. "Identify yourself." "It's me, Arthur," Odetta said. Her voice changed. The timid housewife tone vanished, replaced by a commanding alto that had terrified board members across 3 continents. "Send the car, the Maybach. I'm at the Hawthorne estate." There was a pause on the other end, followed by a sharp intake of breath. "Miss Sterling? My God, is it really you? We thought... You said you were on a sabbatical." "The sabbatical is over," Odetta said, looking back at the mansion looming in the dark. "And Arthur?" "Yes, ma'am?" "Prepare the acquisition team. I want a full audit on Hawthorne Enterprises by tomorrow morning. We're going to buy them." "Buy them, ma'am? To save them?" Odetta smiled, a smile that would have made Beatrice Hawthorne's blood run cold. "No, Arthur. To crush them." The sleek black Maybach pulled up to the curb less than 15 minutes later. The driver, a large man named Caleb, who had been Odetta's head of security for a decade, stepped out and opened the door. He didn't blink at her attire, a faded floral dress from Target and worn-out flats. "Welcome back, Miss Sterling," Caleb said, bowing his head slightly. "It's good to be back, Caleb," Odetta said, sliding into the leather interior that smelled of expensive polish and power. As the car sped towards the city skyline, Odetta pulled a tablet from the seat pocket. She logged in. Her reflection in the dark screen showed a tired woman with messy hair. That woman had to die tonight. "Take me to the penthouse," she ordered, "and call Henri. I need a wardrobe fitting at 2 a.m. And get my stylist on the line. I want the blonde gone. I'm going back to brunette." By the time the sun rose over the city, Odetta Miller no longer existed. Standing in the floor-to-ceiling window of the penthouse suite at the Sterling Tower, Odetta Sterling looked out at the city she practically owned. Her hair was now a rich, glossy chestnut, cut in a sharp, asymmetrical bob that screamed authority. She wore a custom-tailored crimson power suit that cost more than the Hawthorne's annual grocery budget. Arthur, her loyal chief of staff, an older man with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, walked in holding a tablet. He looked nervous. "Ma'am, the team has been up all night running the numbers on Hawthorne Enterprises, as you asked." "And?" Odetta turned, holding a cup of black coffee. "It's worse than we thought," Arthur said, tapping the screen. "They are hemorrhaging money. Beatrice Hawthorne has been siphoning funds to maintain their lifestyle, and Daniel has made some very poor investments in crypto and offshore tech startups that went bust, They are relying entirely on the Sterling Global merger to save them from bankruptcy. If that deal doesn't go through, they lose everything. The house, the cars, the company. Perfect, Odetta said. Ma'am, if I may. Arthur hesitated. Why Hawthorne? You've been gone 3 years. You sent postcards from Vermont. You said you were finding yourself. Did you know them? Odetta walked over to the desk and picked up a framed photo. It was face down. She turned it over. It was a picture of her late father, the founder of Sterling Global. I married him, Arthur, Odetta said casually. Arthur dropped the tablet. It landed on the plush carpet with a thud. You married Daniel Hawthorne. But nobody knew. The press. I used an alias. I altered my background check. I wanted to see if I could be loved for me, Arthur. Not the money. Not the name. She laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. Turns out I couldn't. She walked back to the window. Set up the meeting, Arthur. Tell the Hawthorns that the CEO of Sterling Global is finally ready to meet them to finalize the acquisition. Tell them it's happening tomorrow at noon. Here. Yes, ma'am. Shall I tell them your name? No. Odetta's eyes glinted. Let them think they are meeting an old man. Let them come in arrogant. I want to see the look on Beatrice's face when she realizes the trash she kicked out owns the chair she's sitting in. The lobby of Sterling Tower was a cathedral of glass and steel. Daniel Hawthorne walked in, flanked by his mother, Beatrice, and his sister Jessica. They looked like they were attending a coronation. Beatrice was wearing vintage Chanel, and Jessica was live-streaming to her followers. Guys, we are literally at Sterling Tower right now, Jessica whispered into her phone. Big things coming. #bossbabe #empire. Put that away, Beatrice hissed, swatting at the phone. We need to look professional. Daniel, straighten your tie. You look like a slob. Daniel adjusted his tie. He looked pale. Mum, I'm nervous. The terms of the deal, if they look too closely at the books, they won't, Beatrice assured him. They want our legacy brand. They want the Hawthorne name. We have leverage. Now remember, the CEO is likely some old dinosaur. Be respectful, but firm. We want a seat on the board. They approached the reception desk. A young woman with a headset looked up. Hawthorne party to see the CEO, Beatrice announced loudly. Ah, yes, you're expected, the receptionist said, checking a list. Top floor, the boardroom. The CEO is waiting. The elevator ride was silent and tense. As the numbers climbed, 40, 50, 60, Daniel felt a bead of sweat roll down his back. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He had tried calling Odetta's burner phone last night, just to make sure she was okay, but the number was disconnected. Why do I care? He thought. She's gone. I have Ashley now. The elevator doors pinged open. They stepped out into a massive anteroom. Double doors made of frosted glass stood at the end of the hall. Arthur was waiting for them. Mr. Hawthorne, Mrs. Hawthorne, Arthur nodded. Right this way. He pushed the double doors open. The boardroom was vast. A table long enough to seat 20 people stretched down the center. At the far end, a high-backed leather chair was turned away from them, facing the window. Hello? Daniel called out, his voice echoing. Mr. Sterling. The chair didn't move. We are honored to be here, Beatrice said, putting on her charming smile. We're ready to sign the papers and welcome you to the Hawthorne family partnership. Partnership, a voice said from the chair. It was a woman's voice. Low, amused. Beatrice frowned. I'm sorry. I thought we were meeting the CEO. You are, the voice said. Slowly the chair swiveled around. Odetta sat there. She was radiant, terrifying, and impeccably dressed. She rested her elbows on the table, steepling her fingers. Her diamond earrings caught the light. Real diamonds, massive ones. Daniel stopped breathing. Jessica dropped her phone. Beatrice's jaw literally fell open. Odetta? Daniel choked out. What are you doing here? How did you get in? Security. Odetta didn't flinch. She just smiled. "Sit down, Daniel," she said. "We have a lot to discuss. And Beatrice, you might want a glass of water. The roast isn't the only thing that's going to be dry today. Your bank accounts are next." The silence in the boardroom was heavy, suffocating. Beatrice Hawthorne was the first to break it. She laughed, a high, shrill sound that bounced off the glass walls. "This is a joke," Beatrice sneered, looking around for hidden cameras. "This is some sick, twisted joke. You paid off the receptionist? You broke in here? Security. Get this housekeeper out of the CEO's chair immediately." She lunged towards the table, intending to grab the phone console. "Sit down, Mrs. Hawthorne," Arthur said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of iron. Two security guards stepped out from the shadows near the door, arms crossed. They weren't looking at Odetta. They were looking at Beatrice. "Arthur, tell them," Daniel pleaded, his face draining of color. "Tell them who she is. She's my wife. She's nobody." "She is Odetta Sterling," Arthur corrected, stepping to stand beside Odetta's chair. "Only daughter of Robert Sterling, sole heiress to the Sterling fortune, and the chairwoman of the board." Odetta didn't speak immediately. She watched them process the information. She saw the gears turning in Daniel's head, the realization of the lies, the orphan story, the poverty. "Sterling?" Jessica whispered, her eyes widening. "Wait, like the Sterling Foundation? The people who built the hospital wing last year?" "The same," Odetta said calmly. She opened a folder on the desk. "Now let's talk business. You came here to merge Hawthorne Enterprises with Sterling Global. You wanted a lifeline." "We are partners," Beatrice stammered, her arrogance faltering, but not breaking. "We have a legacy. If you are who you say you are, then you know the value of the Hawthorne name. We are family, Odetta. Surely we can put the past behind us. The divorce papers. I told Daniel not to file them yet. We can tear them up." Odetta let out a soft chuckle. It was a terrifying sound. "You can't tear them up, Beatrice. They've already been processed. My lawyers expedited it this morning. As of 9 a.m., Daniel and I are legally strangers." Odetta slid a single piece of paper across the long table. It spun perfectly, stopping right in front of Daniel. "This is the new deal," Odetta said. Daniel picked it up. His hands were shaking so hard the paper rattled. He read the figure. $2 million. Odetta, the company is valued at $400 million. "Correction," Odetta said, her voice turning to ice. "The company was valued at $400 million 5 years ago, before your mother started embezzling from the employee pension fund to pay for her jewelry, before you invested in that fraudulent crypto scheme. My auditors found everything, Daniel. You are insolvent. You are 48 hours away from the bank seizing your estate." "You can't do this," Daniel whispered. "We were married. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It meant everything to me," Odetta said, leaning forward, her eyes locking onto his. "I scrubbed your floors, Daniel. I cooked your meals. I nursed you when you had the flu. I put up with your mother treating me like a dog, and in return, you handed me divorce papers on your birthday because you wanted a real heiress." She stood up, towering over the table. "Well, you got one. I'm the real heiress, and this is how real business is done. I'm buying Hawthorne Enterprises for the price of its debt plus $2 million. You will use that $2 million to pay off your personal creditors. You will walk away with nothing. No company, no stock, no legacy." "I won't sign!" Beatrice screamed, slamming her fist on the table. "I will go to the press. I will tell them you deceived us." "Go ahead," Odetta shrugged, "and I'll release the audit reports. I'll show the world how you stole from your own workers. You'll go to prison, Beatrice. Is that what you want? Or do you want the $2 million and a quiet exit?" Beatrice froze. The color left her face. She looked at Daniel. Daniel looked at the floor. "Sign it," Beatrice whispered, defeated. Daniel took out a pen. He looked at Odetta one last time. "Odetta, I didn't know." "Ignorance is expensive, Daniel," Odetta replied. He signed. "Get out," Odetta said, turning her chair back to the window. "Arthur, have security escort them out, and ensure their building passes are deactivated before they hit the lobby." As the doors closed behind the sobbing Hawthorne family, Odetta didn't smile. She just felt a cold, hard resolve. Step 1 was complete. They were broken financially. But she wasn't done. She had to break them socially. 3 weeks later, the engagement of Daniel Hawthorne and Ashley Vanderbilt was the talk of the city, though not for the reasons the Hawthornes hoped. The rumors of the fire sale of their company had started to circulate, but Beatrice had spun the narrative. She told everyone they had cashed out for billions and were retiring to focus on philanthropy. They were desperate to marry Daniel off to Ashley Vanderbilt. The Vanderbilts were old money, or so everyone thought. If Daniel married Ashley, the Hawthorne status would be cemented, and they could live off her trust fund. The engagement party was being held at the Obsidian, the city's most exclusive nightclub. It was a black-tie affair. Paparazzi lined the velvet ropes. Inside, Daniel stood by the bar, downing a scotch. He looked tired. The $2 million from the buyout was already half gone, spent by Beatrice on paying off immediate debts to keep up appearances. "Smile, darling." Ashley Vanderbilt appeared beside him. She was beautiful, blonde, and sharp-featured, wearing a silver dress that looked like liquid mercury. "The photographers are watching. You look like you're at a funeral." "I'm just tired, Ash," Daniel said. "Are you sure about tonight? This party. It must be costing a fortune." "Daddy's taking care of it." Ashley waved her hand dismissively. "Besides, we need to make a statement. We need to show everyone that the Hawthornes and Vanderbilts are the new power couple." Beatrice swept over, wearing a gown that was far too young for her. "Daniel, straighten up. Oh, look, there's the editor of Vogue. I need to go say hello." Suddenly the music cut out. The heavy bass that had been thumping through the floorboards stopped. The lights dimmed until the room was pitch black. A spotlight hit the grand staircase. "What's going on?" Ashley snapped, looking around. "I didn't order a performance." The DJ's voice boomed over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new owner of the Obsidian, Miss Odetta Sterling." A collective gasp ripped through the crowd. At the top of the stairs stood Odetta. She was wearing a dress of deep midnight blue velvet, off the shoulder, with a slit that went up to her thigh. Around her neck hung the Star of the East, a sapphire necklace rumored to have been lost for decades. She descended the stairs slowly, every eye in the room fixed on her. "What is she doing here?" Beatrice hissed, clutching Daniel's arm. "She's ruining everything." Odetta reached the bottom of the stairs and took a microphone from a waiter. "Good evening, everyone," Odetta said, her voice smooth and captivating. "I apologize for the interruption. I recently acquired this venue, and when I saw my old friends were throwing a party, I couldn't resist stopping by to wish the happy couple well." She walked through the crowd. The sea of people parted for her like the Red Sea. She walked straight up to Daniel and Ashley. Ashley Vanderbilt stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. She didn't know Odetta personally, only the stories Beatrice had told her, that Odetta was a crazy, gold-digging ex-wife. "This is a private party," Ashley spat. "You may own the building, but we rented the space. Leave, now." Odetta smiled. It was a predatory smile. "Actually, Ashley," Odetta said, loud enough for the nearby guests to hear, "I'm here to save you." "Save me?" Ashley scoffed. "From what? Too much champagne?" "From making a bad investment," Odetta said. She turned to the crowd, addressing the room. "You see, everyone here thinks the Hawthornes are billionaires who just sold their company. But the truth is, they sold it to me for pennies to avoid bankruptcy. Daniel is broke. Beatrice is broke. They are banking on you, Ashley, to pay their bills." The room erupted in murmurs. Beatrice looked like she was having a heart attack. "Liar!" Daniel shouted, stepping forward. "She's lying because she's jealous. She's a bitter ex-wife." "Am I?" Odetta reached into her clutch and pulled out a folded document. "This is the foreclosure notice on the Hawthorne estate. It was served this morning. And this," she pulled out another paper, "is a credit report on the Vanderbilt Family Trust." Ashley froze. "What are you doing with that?" Ashley's voice trembled. Odetta looked at Ashley with mock pity. "Did you think I wouldn't do my research? The Vanderbilts are just as broke as the Hawthorns. Your father has been leveraging assets that don't exist. You two aren't a power couple. You're two drowning people trying to use each other as a life raft." The room went deadly silent. The cameras were flashing blindingly fast now. "That's not true!" Ashley screamed, but her eyes darted to her father, who was standing in the corner, looking pale and defeated. Odetta leaned in close to Daniel. "I told you, Daniel, I wanted to be loved for me. You wanted the money. Now everyone knows you have neither." She turned to the DJ booth. "Play something upbeat. Let's celebrate the truth." "Music!" Odetta commanded. As the beat dropped, Odetta turned and walked toward the VIP section, leaving Daniel and Ashley standing in the center of the dance floor, exposed and humiliated. The guests began to whisper and pull away from them, the circle of isolation growing wider by the second. Beatrice grabbed Daniel. "Fix this! Do something!" But Daniel just stared at Odetta's retreating figure. He realized with a sinking horror that the woman he had thrown away was not just rich. She was powerful, and she was systematically destroying his life. Odetta sat in the VIP booth, sipping a sparkling water. Arthur appeared beside her. "That was theatrical, ma'am," Arthur noted. "It was necessary," Odetta said. "But we aren't done. The Vanderbilts and Hawthorns will try to deny it tomorrow. They'll try to spin it. So what is the next move?" Odetta watched Ashley Vanderbilt crying and yelling at her father across the room. "The Vanderbilts have something I want," Odetta said darkly. "They own the land my mother grew up on. The land they evicted her from 30 years ago. I'm going to take it back, and I'm going to make Ashley give it to me." "How?" "Ashley has a secret," Odetta said, tapping her temple. "A secret she's been hiding in Paris, and I just got the file." The fallout from the engagement party was catastrophic. The tabloids ran the headline, "Broke Billionaires, the Hawthorne and Vanderbilt Fraud." 2 days later, the city's elite gathered at the Golden Gavel auction house. It was a charity auction, the kind where social standing was bought and sold with the raise of a paddle. Odetta Sterling sat in the front row. She wore a white pantsuit that looked sharp enough to cut glass. Next to her sat Arthur, holding a clipboard. Across the aisle, Ashley Vanderbilt sat alone. She looked haggard behind oversized sunglasses. Daniel and Beatrice were nowhere to be seen, likely hiding from the process servers swarming their estate. Ashley was there for a reason. The Vanderbilts were quietly liquidating assets. Specifically, Lot 45. Lot 45, the auctioneer announced. The Blackwood Estate, a historic property on the outskirts of the city. 300 acres of untouched forest, and a dilapidated, yet historic, manor. Bidding starts at 500,000. This was it. The land Odetta's mother had been evicted from by Ashley's grandfather decades ago. It was the only thing Odetta really wanted. 500,000, Ashley whispered, raising her paddle. She needed this sale to go high. She needed the cash to pay off the blackmailers in Paris who were threatening to expose her secret. 1 million, Odetta said loudly, not even raising her paddle. She just spoke. The room turned. Ashley stiffened. She looked at Odetta with pure venom. 1.5, Ashley countered. She was bidding on her own family's property to drive the price up, hoping someone else would jump in. It was a dangerous game. 5 million, Odetta said. Boring. The room gasped. The property wasn't worth 2. Ashley's eyes widened. 5 million would solve all her problems. It would pay the debt. It would silence the past. She waited for the auctioneer to slam the gavel. 10 million, Odetta added. The auctioneer paused. "Mum, you are bidding against yourself." "I know," Odetta said, standing up. "I'm making a point. I'm prepared to pay 20 million. But," she turned to Ashley, "I'd prefer to negotiate a private sale, right now." Ashley hesitated. 20 million was a lifeline. It was freedom. She stood up and walked towards the exit. Odetta followed. In the marble hallway outside the auction room, the air was tense. "You want the land that bad?" Ashley hissed. "It's just dirt. My grandfather used to dump trash there." "That trash was my mother's garden," Odetta said, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "But we aren't here to talk about gardening. We're here to talk about Paris." Ashley froze. Her hand went to her throat. "I don't know what you're talking about." Odetta pulled a photo from her purse. It was a grainy picture taken in a Parisian park. It showed Ashley holding a toddler's hand. A toddler with the same distinct nose as Ashley. "Her name is Chloe, isn't it?" Odetta asked softly. 3 years old. Living with a nanny in the 16th arrondissement. You send money every month, but you haven't visited her in 2 years. Because a secret child doesn't fit the virgin heiress brand you sold to the media. And it certainly wouldn't sit well with your grandmother, who controls the trust fund. Ashley began to shake. "Please, if my grandmother finds out, she'll cut me off. I'll have nothing." "You already have nothing, Ashley. You're broke," Odetta reminded her. "But I'm not a monster. I don't hurt children to punish adults. That's Beatrice's style, not mine." Odetta held out a document. "Transfer the Blackwood estate to me for $1. $1? You just offered 20 million. That was inside. Out here, the price is your silence. You sign the deed, and I destroy the photos. I'll even set up an anonymous trust for Chloe, so she's taken care of, since her mother is too busy chasing bankrupt men." Ashley looked at the photo. She looked at the deed. She realized she had been checkmated. "And Daniel?" Ashley asked. "What about my engagement?" "Break it," Odetta said. "Publicly. Humiliate him. Leave him with absolutely no one. Do that, and your secret dies with me." Ashley took the pen. She signed the deed with a shaky hand. "Done," Ashley whispered. "I'm leaving for Europe tonight." "Good choice," Odetta said, taking the paper. "Give Chloe a hug for me." As Ashley ran out of the building, sobbing, Arthur stepped out from behind a pillar. "The deed is secured, ma'am. The construction crews are ready to start restoring your mother's house tomorrow." "Good," Odetta said. "Now, let's go home. I want to see Beatrice's face when she reads the news that her rich daughter-in-law has fled the country." But Odetta didn't know that Beatrice was done hiding. A cornered animal is the most dangerous kind, and Beatrice Hawthorne was about to bite back. The next morning, Daniel sat in the living room of the Hawthorne estate. The furniture was being tagged by movers. The bank had given them 1 week to vacate. He was staring at his phone. Ashley had blocked him on everything. Her Instagram simply posted a black square with the caption, "Lies. All of it. I'm out." "She left me," Daniel muttered. "She actually left me." "Good riddance," Beatrice said. She was pacing the room, manic energy radiating off her. She held a lit cigarette, dropping ash on the expensive Persian rug she no longer owned. "She was weak. We don't need her. We have a plan." "What plan, Mum?" Daniel shouted, standing up. "It's over. Odetta won. She has the money, the company, the power. We are homeless. I have to apply for a job at a gas station just to eat." "Sit down," Beatrice screamed. "Odetta has money, yes, but she has a reputation to protect. Sterling Global is a public company. They care about image." Beatrice turned on the large flat-screen TV. "I made a call." Beatrice grinned, a twisted, ugly expression. "To the Richard Sallow show." Daniel's blood ran cold. Richard Sallow was the trashiest, most aggressive talk show host in the country. He specialized in destroying careers. "Mum, no." "It airs in 10 minutes. Live." On the screen, the theme music played. Richard Sallow walked out, holding a stack of papers. "Welcome back," Richard boomed. "Today we have a shocking story of betrayal, fraud, and a gold digger who tricked her way to the top. Please welcome Beatrice Hawthorne." Daniel watched in horror as his mother walked onto the stage. She was dressed in modest, almost frumpy clothes, completely unlike her usual style. She had fake tears in her eyes. "Oh, Richard," Beatrice sobbed into a tissue. It's so hard. We took her in. We took Odetta in when she was living on the streets. We fed her, clothed her. Daniel loved her." "And how did she repay you?" Richard asked, leaning in. "She stole from us," Beatrice wailed. "She was secretly funneling money from Daniel's accounts for years. That's how she bought Sterling Global. She's not an heiress. She's a thief. She embezzled our family fortune and then bought the company with our own money to humiliate us." The audience gasped. "That's a lie," Daniel yelled at the TV. "Odetta didn't steal a dime. We spent it all." "Shut up, Daniel," Beatrice hissed in the living room. "The public believes tears, not facts." On TV, Richard Sallow looked into the camera. "Odetta Sterling, if you're watching this, you are a predator, and we are going to expose—" Suddenly the image on the TV flickered. Static cut across the screen. The audience on the TV looked confused. The large screen behind Richard Sallow, which displayed Beatrice's tearful face, suddenly went black. Then a new video appeared on the studio screen. It was grainy footage. CCTV footage. It was dated 3 years ago. It showed Beatrice Hawthorne sitting in a bank office. The audio was crystal clear. "I don't care if it's illegal," Beatrice's voice rang out from the TV speakers. "Transfer the employee pension fund to my personal Cayman account. If the workers complain, fire them. I need that diamond necklace for the gala. Just cook the books. Daniel is too stupid to notice, and his wife is too busy scrubbing floors." The audience in the studio went silent. Beatrice on the stage stopped crying. Her face went pale white. In the living room, the real Beatrice dropped her cigarette. On the TV, the video cut to another clip. It was Beatrice talking to Jessica. "Of course we treat Odetta like trash. That's what she is. Free labor. Once Daniel gets his inheritance released, we'll kick her to the curb. Make sure you delete the prenup files from the lawyer's server." Richard Sallow stood up, confused. "What is this? Cut the feed," a voice came over the studio speakers. Not the producer's voice. Odetta's voice. "Don't cut the feed, Richard. You wanted the truth." The camera panned to the back of the studio. Odetta Sterling was standing there, holding a microphone. She wasn't wearing a power suit today. She was wearing jeans and a simple shirt, the same outfit she wore the day she was kicked out. She walked down the aisle. The audience parted for her. "You invited my mother-in-law to tell a story," Odetta said, walking onto the stage. Beatrice shrank back into her chair, looking for an escape route. "But you didn't fact-check. I didn't steal their money. I own the bank where she tried to hide it." Odetta turned to Beatrice. "Did you think I was just a housewife, Beatrice? I was the CFO of Sterling Global before I met Daniel. I managed billions while you struggled to balance a checkbook. Every room in your house had smart home security cameras. I have 3 years of footage. Every insult, every theft, every lie." Odetta looked at the camera. "Beatrice Hawthorne is currently under investigation by the FBI for embezzlement, fraud, and tax evasion. The police are waiting backstage." 2 uniformed officers walked onto the set. "No!" Beatrice screamed, jumping up. "This is a setup. Daniel, help me." The officers grabbed Beatrice's arms. As they dragged her off the stage, live on national television, she kicked and screamed, her modest act completely forgotten. Richard Sallow stood there, mouth agape. Odetta turned to him. "Next time you want to destroy a woman," Odetta said, her voice icy, "make sure she doesn't own the network your show airs on." She dropped the microphone. The screen went black. Back in the empty, dark living room, Daniel stared at the blank TV. His mother was gone. His fiancée was gone. His money was gone. His phone rang. It was Jessica. "Daniel, Mum just got arrested. The police are at the door. They're seizing the cars. What do we do?" Daniel didn't answer. He saw headlights flash in the driveway. He walked to the window. The black Maybach was there. Odetta was standing by the gate. She wasn't coming in. She was just watching. Daniel opened the front door and walked out. He looked broken. He walked down the driveway to where Odetta stood. "You win," Daniel whispered. "You destroyed us. Are you happy?" Odetta looked at him. There was no hate in her eyes anymore, just pity. "I didn't destroy you, Daniel," she said softly. "I just turned on the lights. You destroyed yourselves." "What happens now?" Daniel asked, tears streaming down his face. "I have nothing. I have nowhere to go." Odetta opened her purse. She pulled out a set of keys. "I bought a small apartment in the city," she said. "It's a studio, paid up for 6 months, and I got you a job interview." "A job?" "At the warehouse. Entry level. $15 an hour. It's hard work, Daniel, but it's honest work. Something you've never done in your life." She dropped the keys in his hand. "This is the last thing I will ever do for you. Goodbye, Daniel." She got into the car. As the window rolled up, Daniel stood alone in the dark, clutching the keys to a life he used to mock. Odetta looked forward. "To the airport, Caleb." "Where to next, Mom?" "Italy," Odetta smiled. "I have a business to run, and I hear the coffee is better there." 1 year later. The alarm clock on the floor didn't buzz. It screamed. Daniel Hawthorne rolled off the thin, stained mattress, his body hitting the cold linoleum with a heavy thud. He groaned, clutching his lower back. At 33 years old, he felt 60. The damp studio apartment in the industrial district smelled of mildew and the onions his neighbor fried at 5 a.m. every morning. He looked at his hands. They were unrecognizable. The manicured fingernails and soft skin of a man who had never lifted anything heavier than a champagne flute were gone. In their place were calluses, cuts, and grease stains that no amount of scrubbing could remove. He pulled on his steel-toed boots. Today was a double shift at the distribution center. He needed the overtime. His mother's legal fees were due. 2 hours later, Daniel stood in the visitation room of the state correctional facility. He hated this room. The fluorescent lights hummed with a headache-inducing frequency, and the smell of industrial bleach burned his nose. Beatrice Hawthorne sat behind the plexiglass. She looked skeletal. Her once-dyed hair was now a harsh, streaky grey, pulled back in a severe bun. The orange jumpsuit washed out her pale complexion. "You look terrible," Beatrice said. "No, hello? No, how are you?" Just judgment. Even in prison, she was the matriarch. "I'm working 60 hours a week, Mother," Daniel said, his voice flat. He picked up the phone receiver. "The lawyer says the appeal was denied. The forensic accounting was too thorough. They found the offshore accounts you opened in my name." "That witch," Beatrice hissed, her eyes bulging. "She planted that evidence. Odetta set us up. She was planning this from the day she walked into our kitchen." "She didn't plant the money, Mum," Daniel said, a sudden flash of anger rising in his chest. "You stole it. You stole from the employees. You stole from me. And you treated her like an animal." "I did what was necessary to maintain our standard of living," Beatrice snapped. "And look at you now, a warehouse worker. It's embarrassing. When I get out of here—" "You aren't getting out for 8 years, Daniel interrupted. He looked at the woman who had controlled every aspect of his life, who had whispered in his ear that Odetta wasn't good enough, that he deserved a Vanderbilt, that love was a transaction. "I'm done paying the lawyer, Mum," Daniel said quietly. Beatrice froze. "What did you say?" "I'm done. I can't afford it. I can barely afford rent. You're on your own." "You ungrateful little—" Daniel hung up the phone. He watched her mouth moving, screaming silent obscenities behind the glass. He stood up, turned his back on his mother, and walked out. For the first time in his life, he was an orphan. And he felt strangely lighter. The shift at the Sterling Global Logistics Center was brutal. It was raining, and the loading bay was slick with oil and water. Daniel was moving crates of imported wine, Italian reds, ironically. "Move it, Hawthorne," the foreman yelled. "Truck 4 leaves in 10 minutes. Daniel hoisted a heavy crate. His foot slipped on a patch of oil. He went down hard. The crate smashed onto the concrete, bottles shattering. A jagged shard of glass sliced through his heavy work pants, cutting deep into his calf. Pain exploded up his leg. He cried out, clutching his shin as blood pooled on the concrete, mixing with the spilled wine. "Man down!" someone yelled. The next hour was a blur of paramedics and bright lights. He was rushed to the county hospital. As he lay on the gurney, staring at the ceiling tiles, panic set in. Not about the leg, but about the cost. He had no insurance. The ambulance ride alone would bankrupt him. He would lose the apartment. He would be on the street. "I can't pay," he mumbled to the nurse, stitching him up. "Please, just bandage it. I can't pay." "Shh," the nurse said gently. "Rest now." When he woke up, a man in a grey suit was standing at the foot of his bed. It was Arthur. Daniel's heart stopped. He tried to sit up, but the pain forced him back. "Arthur? Is she here?" Arthur looked at him. There was no pity in his eyes, just a clinical detachment. "Miss Sterling is in Milan, Daniel. She doesn't know I'm here, and she doesn't need to know." "Then why?" "Because Sterling Global has a policy," Arthur said, adjusting his glasses. "We take care of workplace injuries, even for entry-level loaders." Arthur placed a folder on the tray table. "Your medical bills are covered in full. The company is also providing you with 2 weeks of paid recovery leave." Daniel felt tears prick his eyes. She did this?" "The policy did this," Arthur corrected him. "But there is something else." Arthur pulled out a tablet. He tapped the screen and turned it toward Daniel. It was a live stream of a press conference happening in Italy. "Watch," Arthur commanded. On the screen, Odetta stood at a podium. She looked breathtaking, powerful, radiant, and completely untouchable. She was flanked by the Italian Prime Minister. "Today," Odetta spoke into the microphones, her voice confident, "Sterling Global is proud to announce the acquisition of the Vanderbilt European estates. We will be converting the historic properties into agricultural schools for underprivileged youth." Daniel's jaw dropped. She hadn't just defeated the Vanderbilts. She had absorbed their legacy and turned it into charity. "I do this," Odetta continued, looking straight into the camera, "because I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to be judged for where you come from, rather than who you are. No one should ever feel that small." Arthur turned off the tablet. "She's flying high, Daniel. She has surpassed the stratosphere." "Why are you showing me this?" Daniel whispered. "To torture me?" "To give you a choice," Arthur said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He placed it on the table. Daniel opened it. Inside was his grandmother's wedding ring, the one he had taken back from Odetta the day he divorced her. The one he had sold to a pawn shop 6 months ago to pay rent. "How?" Daniel stammered. "I bought it back," Arthur said. "Odetta doesn't know. She would probably tell me to throw it in the river, but I served your father for 20 years, Daniel. I saw you grow up. You were a good boy before Beatrice got her claws into you." Arthur leaned in close. "Take the ring. Sell it. Use the money to go to trade school. Get off the warehouse floor, or keep it as a reminder of the woman you threw away. It's up to you. But this is the end. Sterling Global will not save you again." Arthur turned and walked to the door. "Arthur," Daniel called out. Arthur paused, hand on the doorknob. "Does she ever ask about me?" Arthur didn't turn around. "No, Daniel, she doesn't." The door clicked shut. Tuscany, Italy. The same evening. The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in violent shades of violet and bruised orange. Odetta Sterling sat on the terrace of her villa, a glass of Chianti in her hand. Her phone buzzed on the stone table. It was a message from Arthur. "It is done. The account is closed." Odetta stared at the message. She knew what it meant. She had seen the accident report from the warehouse. She knew Daniel was the injured employee. She hadn't ordered Arthur to go, but she hadn't stopped him when he booked the flight. She swiped the message away and deleted the thread. "Bad news?" a voice asked. Odetta looked up. A man walked out onto the terrace. He was tall, with kind eyes, and a smile that didn't hide any secrets. He was Matteo, the architect restoring the Vanderbilt estate. He wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't a shark. He was just a man who liked building things. "No," Odetta smiled, setting her phone down, face down. "Just old business. It's finally finished." "Good," Matteo said, offering her a bowl of olives, "because the contractor is asking about the garden. He wants to know if you want to keep the old rose bushes or tear them out." Odetta thought about the dry roast. She thought about the floor she used to scrub. She thought about the woman she used to be. Odetta Miller, the mouse. "Keep them," Odetta said, taking Matteo's hand. "They survived the winter. They deserve to bloom." She looked out over the hills. She didn't hate Daniel anymore. Hate required energy. She just felt a distant, quiet peace. She had climbed the mountain of revenge, and the view from the top wasn't about looking down at the people she crushed. It was about looking up at the sky she now owned. And that, my friends, is the true end of the Hawthorne saga. From the dining room where she was treated like a servant to the Italian villa where she reigns as a queen, Odetta Sterling's journey proves one thing: success is the absolute best revenge. Daniel got his second chance, but he had to hit rock bottom to find it. And Beatrice, well, she's exactly where she belongs. I want to hear from you in the comments. Was Arthur right to buy back the ring for Daniel? Or should he have let him suffer the full consequences? And be honest, would you have been as forgiving as Odetta was with that medical bill? If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please smash that like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm share these stories with more people. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next drama. Thank you for watching, and remember, never underestimate the quiet ones.